And on today's video, we're going to be talking to Neil about his latest deal in property. So all the details, what's good, what's bad. So welcome back to the channel, Property Insight. My name is Mark Ashworth.
I'm Neil Harding.
So Neil, your latest deal, what
Yeah.
did this look like? Was it a traditional purchase? Was it a doer-upper? Or tell us about it.
Yeah, it was a property that came up on a Rightmove feed at auction. And what's interesting about it is that it was outside my investment area of Peterborough, which is where, up until now, my portfolio is. This one's actually in Nottingham. So, very adventurous for me.
That's a fair drive, fair added amount of time to get there, yeah. Yes,
that's right. So I had to first of all sort of think about, do I actually want to go outside Peterborough? I mean, there's no particular reason why I could not invest outside Peterborough. Peterborough is where I'm from originally, so I know the city very well, so it's got that going for it, and it's also a 45-minute drive from where I live, so it's got some advantages. Nottingham's a 2-hour drive for me, so a bit more of a trek. I don't have my power team there, so I had to overcome those sort of mental limiters almost as to deciding whether or not that was for me. But really, I found a compelling deal, and I thought, well, actually, this could be just right for me. And this property had a really super low guide price. That was one of the first things that stood out to me. So the guide price was only £70,000.
Wow.
So I knew it was going to sell. So sometimes properties, then they don't have a realistically set guide price, and you think, the reserve, which is normally 10% above the guide price. So in this case, 77 or let's say £80,000. There's no way that this would not sell at auction, because this property I thought would be worth somewhere between 160 to 170,000 pounds in fair condition. Okay.
So what was that? I mean, it does seem like, I'm sure many viewers are now asking, well, this seems to be very low guide price to actually what its value was. Was there a particular reason for it?
Well, the company that owned the property had gone bust, and so had to sell that property along with a number of other properties that they were selling. So it had to be sold, and that's why the guide price was set so keenly. So I decided that, actually this is worth a 2-hour drive. So I drove over to Nottingham to check that there was nothing else that was wrong with it, and that was the only thing that was wrong with the property, that it was just the sort of, I suppose, the financial distress behind the motivated sale. So I viewed around the outside property first to make sure there was no subsidence, there was, the house wasn't falling apart, basic checks. The roof basically looked okay. There was one or two roof tiles that had slipped, but nothing catastrophic, and certainly no sign of any subsidence or heave or any problems like that. I was able to meet the occupants, the tenants. It has a tenant in situ, and they're very nice people, and they were kind enough to show me around the property on an impromptu basis. I didn't have an appointment. They just were very welcoming and let me in. They'd lived there for a number of years, and I viewed it.
So given the fact that you didn't have an appointment, was the auction company not able to offer you a viewing time, or?
No, they weren't actually, because they were so disorganised, and because they had gone bust. There was nobody effectively still working in this company, nobody really to control the admin of the sale. Everything was in the hands of the solicitors, so they weren't doing viewings, and consequently, I think I probably had a bit of an advantage, probably over a lot of other bidders, because I'd gone to the property, but also had managed to actually get inside to view the property and meet the occupants. They'd lived there for quite a few years,
right? And
happy to live there, and were taking good care of the place, and wanted to live there for many more years to come. So that was a good sign for me. With Nottingham not being an area where I've got my team to do things like a big refurbishment project, it was quite important for me that if the deal was going to work for me, I didn't really want a big doer-upper, so I didn't really want to buy, refurbish, refinance. I wanted something that was basically good to go, and there's nothing more good to go than a property that's in good condition with a tenant already in place. You don't actually even have to do viewings, and they want to carry on paying rent and sign up to another 12-month contract, and it seemed like it was potentially a good deal, and as long as, of course, the price was right. So this really isn't a buy, refurbish, refinance investment. This was really, if it was ever going to work, this was just simply going to be a below market value purchase. You know, if the numbers work below market value, then
maybe just a BR.
Maybe just a BR, BR or a BMV or whatever B numbers, letters you want to use. So I registered for the auction, as you have to now with auctions. You've got to register with every single lot that you want to bid on. That's quite common.
You pay an upfront fee, don't you? I think that's an important thing to mention.
Yeah. So this particular auction, a requirement is that you put down £5,000 for each lot that you want to bid on within the auction. So, you know, 3 properties that you want to bid on, you've got to put down £15,000. And this actually was the only property that I wanted to bid on in this particular auction. And I transferred £5,000, which allowed me to bid at the auction, which I bid on online, internet bidding. The bidding started and very, very rapidly went through the £100,000 barrier and, you know, went on. It was pretty clear that it was down to me and one other bidder for the last sort of 4, 5, 6 bids. And the auctioneer even said so as he was regulating the bidding. And I bought the property for £127,500, and which I was pleased with. I thought I was quite happy with that price. I looked at getting bridging for the property, and the lender was actually happy to lend without doing a valuation, an on-site inspection or valuation, just a desktop review, and they valued the property at £163,000, which was in that 160 to 170 range where I thought the property was. So I was quite happy with that, quite encouraged by that, having just, you know, the hammer fell at 127,500. So when you hear from a third-party desktop review that they value it at 163, and that's roughly where you think you are, that's quite encouraging. So that's something in the region of 20, just over 20% below market value, which is good. And so I was very happy with that. In the end, I decided to buy for cash.
Okay.
So I'm buying this one with cash, with a view to remortgage onto a more sort of standard bank buy-to-let mortgage product in 6 months.
So when you purchase a property and you want to put a mortgage on it, typically the lender wants you to own it for 6 months before doing so. Money laundering regulations, I believe that comes down to.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of it. And also the valuer, I think, as part of the RICS valuation guidelines, they're not sort of restricted by the price you paid for it if you've owned it for more than 6 months. So they will look back and see what price you paid for the property, and if you bought it within the last 6 months, they will say, well, you bought it for 127,500 only 4 months ago, so in our opinion it's worth that, which has some logic to it. But if the market's moved on 6 months or more, then, if you like, the sort of the brakes are off, and they can actually say, well, what's the market willing to pay for a property like this today? So then you're going to get more like the valuation of 160 something.
Sounds like a great deal. You now own the property, and you...
So very nearly.
Okay.
At the moment it's with conveyancing, and it should complete in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Fabulous. And the tenants are, obviously they've been informed that you're the new landlord, and and they're happy with the rent they're paying. And will there be is there any rent review to do, or what does the yield look like as far as the purchase price or the value is concerned for you?
Yeah, so the tenants are currently paying £800 a month, which I think is probably at the low end of the range for a property like that. Yeah, maybe that could achieve £850, something like that. I've decided actually just to keep the rent as it is, at least for the first 12 months that I own the property, partly because want to have a good relationship with the tenant and keep them happy. And I'm happy for them to stay and continue living there for as long as they want to. And I think we've done a video before as well where we quite like leaving the rent just sort of slightly below market rate, maybe 5% below market rate, so you keep a happy tenant, probably get more longevity of tenancy as well. So maybe 800 might increase to 825 maybe in a year's time. I think 800 a month on a property that's worth 160 something thousand pounds. It's not a fantastic gross yield, that in itself. I don't think it's amazing, but I think on a purchase price of 127, it works quite nicely. So on that basis, and on the basis that I'm hoping that in 9 months, I will have most of my money out. I don't think I'll have all of it out, but I think I'll be leaving something like 10 grand in, I think. I'm happy with the yield.
And what's really nice about that particular deal, in contrast to something where you have to refurbish, is that you've got money from day one, right? So you've got a tenant in situ already. You haven't got any void period, and you know that you got income from the minute you exchange.
It's almost as, dare I say it, you know, touch wood. It's kind of almost as easy as it comes, really, because you've got a tenant in there that's very happy living there. They want to live there for many more years to come. They already have lived there for quite a few years. They're happy. They pay rent every month. They're nice people, and yeah, I'm hoping that will continue for years to come, and they do pay from day one.
So thanks for sharing that with us, Neil, and we do hope that you found that video insightful. If you would like to stay in touch with us for further content, obviously like the video, please, and subscribe to the channel, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video.